Hi, Rachel here with Embodied Wellness Guide. Today I'm going to be giving you a mini lesson and mindfulness around our hand. So this is going to be especially useful for anything that requires a lot of power through the hand. So thinking about stuff like planks or even just weight bearing on your hands and knees. I see a lot of people in the movement world that avoid putting weight on their hands, mainly because it hurts. It doesn't feel good on their wrist. It makes things fatigue pretty quickly. And so know that this lesson and this awareness is meant to give you some tools so that you can create some power and strength in your hand, which should give you more power and strength up into the shoulder and also up into your upper core, into your rib cage. I also see a lot of people, whenever they put weight in their hands, they get into these kind of scrunchy shoulder postures. So helpful to get some of that balanced work around the shoulder that does help your shoulder feel connected to your rib cage instead of scrunching up into your neck. So let's start with just like a little mini anatomy lesson of our hand. So through our hand, in our palm, we have a lot of little bones down through the lower half of the palm. So near the heel of the hand, there's a lot of irregular bones that are kind of stacked like pebbles through here. But then in this upper half of the palm, you can feel in yours that it's like your fingers continue into this part of the palm, and it's like there's webbing through this part of the palm kind of connecting your hand. And we are going to feel and ask for a lot of width in that part of the hand, in the webbing part of the hand. So I see a lot of people, they get really good at spreading their fingers, and sometimes spreading your fingers or even like hyperextending your pinky like mine tends to do actually squishes this, and it makes this smaller, less able to be a base if we're doing something on our hands. And so I'm going to encourage you to take your fingertips for a moment and just come and give the pinky side of your palm a little pressure. So I'm just going to give it a little resistance. So I'm going to feel what it's like to push and widen into that part of my hand, which is different than spreading my pinky out. And I'm just going to feel what that's like. Give it a little pressure. And then I'll also take my fingers over to the pointer side and I'll give it a little pressure. So I'm just feeling like, what's it like to widen into the pointer finger side of my palm. And then I'll create some resistance on both sides. So I'm going to have a few fingertips on the pinky side of the webbing, and then my thumb is pressurizing on the pointer finger side. And I'm going to give it a little pressure. It's subtle, but I'm feeling what it's like to have wider webbings in my palm. Nice. And I'll shake that out. I'll do anything I need. And then I'll feel, and I'll see the other side. So I want to look at this hand. I want to start to realize and notice that there's a section of my hand where the bones are a little bit more irregular. So there's a lot of like small pebble-like bones through the heel of my hand. And then as I get into this upper part of my palm, it's like my fingers continue. So you can feel that if you trace that with your fingertip. It's like we have a webbing part of our hand. And we're going to be giving this some pressure, some resistance on the pinky side first. So I give it some stance. And then I'll move over to the pointer finger. I'll give the edge a little something to widen into. And then I'll feel this from both sides. So I'll create a little oppositional energy, something to stand into from both directions. You might notice that widening your hand like this does create a different tone up in your shoulder. So you can just notice like, okay, I'm feeling my hand. what happens up my arm when I do this? Beautiful. Now let's take this awareness to the mat. So we're going to do just a few really simple exercises that can help you start to load your hand with some awareness of like, what is happening to this palm? Like, is it shrinking? Is it crumpling? Or can I really power it up? Can I widen it? So come down onto your hands and knees. Stack wrists under shoulders, knees under hips, and maybe just start with like a little marching. You can see your hand really easily. So I'll encourage you to use your vision. Look at your hand, especially as it bears your weight just one-armed. Maybe starting to take this into some shoulder taps. Noticing like, oh, do I splay my fingers? Like that's not wrong or bad, but I want to start to think about widening that webbing part of my palm. After your hands feel warmed up and ready, we'll start to take one leg back. So I'm going to reach one leg back and notice, okay, I've got a little less leg to stand on, a little less hip support. How do my hands respond? Alternate from side to side. This is a time to notice what is happening through my palm webbing. Eventually, this can be taken into a very modified side plank, so that leg back, that goes back, can spin open, and I can come all the way onto one hand. And I want to notice, like I can look, oh, what do I do? Are both sides of my palm still widening? As I move over to the other side, every degree of movement is an opportunity for me to feel how that hand responds, what sort of width I have through my palm. And the support that creates up the arm line and into the shoulder. I've got a lot of freedom in my neck. A lot of power in that arm. After a few rounds of these, come back onto both hands. Tuck your toes, float your knees. I'm going to breathe. This is called floating cat. I want to notice in my floating cat what happens to my palm. Listen to your body when you've had enough. Come down, keep those toes tucked, sit back, get a little foot stretch. Feel free to roll out the wrists. Hopefully with some of this cueing and awareness, like you're feeling tired up the arm. Like I feel tired in my forearms, but I'm not feeling compressed or jammed at this like wristwatch part of my wrist where my carpal tunnel bone is. I'm feeling fatigue in my muscles, not compression in my joint. And that's what we're going for. Coming back onto your hands and knees, we're going to do another round of the floating cat. Spreading through my palm webbing and then floating my knees up. Breathe. Listen to your body, feel for that point of fatigue, and then sit back, maybe with toes untucked this time. Get a little foot massage. Massaging that pinky toe edge of my foot, that lateral arch. And then I'll do one more round of these. Mindfully setting my hands down, I'm noticing that palm webbing. I'm giving it lots of width, using that muscle memory of my fingertips, giving the sides of my palm something to spread into. And then I'll breathe. Lifting those knees. Listening to your body when you feel all done. Maybe a child's pose would feel nice. Feel free to roll the wrists. Beautiful. So just a few simple moves that can help you start to build some strength on how to do things like a plank. Or even moving through a push-up, like what can start to give me the sort of power to stand into my arms and not crumple, not compress my wrists, not get crunchy into my neck, some of the things that just makes us avoid being on our hands and knees because it doesn't feel good. And then we think that movement isn't appropriate for us. It is, like that can be really valuable strength building for our arms, but it's helpful to set up these hands of yours in an advantageous way. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions or thoughts, and I'll see you next time.